The nurse thought she was dreaming when she saw the doors of the morgue slowly creak open. But as she rubbed the sleep from her eyes, she realized she was wide awake, staring at a scene straight out of a nightmare. The man on the gurney, who was pronounced dead just hours before, was now sitting up, his eyes alight with an unearthly glow. And as she watched in horror, the electrical equipment in the room began to flicker and buzz, responding to the man's touch. The nurse couldn't believe what she was seeing, but she was about to find out that the journey from life to death and back again was just the beginning of a roller coaster ride into the supernatural. Welcome to the story of Randall, the boy who defied death and embraced the unknown. So sit tight and let's unfold the mysteries of this journey together. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing stories like this. Without further ado, let's get to the story. Sweating woke me up. I heard my mother calling, but I was unable to respond. I didn't stay up late the previous night or do anything else to make myself this tired. I was just unable to move. Since I had to get up for school, I shut my eyes once more in the hopes that the sleep would end. I opened my eyes when I heard my mother calling again. She had left the light on for me as I could see. I wanted to get ready for school and get up, but I was unable to. I was aware that there was a serious problem. My voice wouldn't cooperate when I tried to yell for assistance moving, however. Although I knew I should be scared, I also told myself that I needed to call for help. When someone knocked on the door, I heard my mother open it for them. I questioned whether someone was coming to assist me. I once more shut my eyes. I opened them again and realized I needed to act quickly because I kept falling back asleep. I needed to get my mother's attention. She was talking to a neighbor, and I could hear that, so I knew she couldn't help me. I moved my arms with all the strength and focus I could muster. I felt my eyes begin to close once more as they landed across my chest. When I failed to fight it, my eyes once more closed. I had a limited amount of time to get assistance when I opened my eyes once more. I heard my mother calling once more. My sister's voice coming from the other room down the hallway drowned out my feeble attempt to respond. I could feel my internal self burning. I tried to lift my arms again when I realized I needed help, but this time I threw them away by using all of my strength. I rolled a short distance after getting out of bed. I shut my eyes once more, opened them, and managed to drag the rest of my body behind me as I crawled about a foot. I grew weak and noticed the dark. I was starting to feel frightened, but I knew that if I let panic take over, I would pass away there on the bedroom floor. I had to rest after a little more darkness struggle and pulling myself up a few more feet. I knew I didn't have much more strength because my arms felt like they were going to swell with jelly and my neck felt like it was on fire. I was aware that my life was ending. I allowed my fear to wash over me before dragging myself out into the hallway. I made an attempt to call for assistance, but I was at my physical limit. I was contemplating my next move when, with one last surge of energy that appeared out of nowhere, I crashed into a wall and yelled, "Mom," once. All the people now sounded the same, so asked me what was wrong. I heard people running through the house and could hear someone. I shut my eyes. When I became conscious, I was in an ambulance, and I can still hear the piercing siren and the company of those who helped me feel a little better. I survived after all. When I opened my eyes, I noticed a person holding on to me and having a very sad expression on their face. I was aware of how poorly I was performing. Now that I could feel my legs and arms, I wished I couldn't. My entire body was ablaze. As though in a heat wave, I could feel the heat radiating off of me. The pain in my arms, legs, neck, and back was unbearable, but I could feel the heat escaping. I wanted to tell those present that I was in excruciating pain, but the sweet sleep overcame me. Although I was unable to open my eyes, I was conscious once more. Although pain had returned, I was aware that the ambulance had left. I hoped the suffering would stop. I could feel pain traveling from my eye into my brain after a hand opened it and shone a light inside of it, but I was helpless to stop it. I dozed off once more until I felt several hands touching me. On the gurney, I was being transferred to a bed. When I was able to open my eyes, I saw many people inside with me. They all appeared to be focused. I closed my eyes once more as a needle was inserted into my spine, wondering what was wrong with me and why I was being held in a coital position. When I awoke the following morning, I was being reinserted into an ambulance. I could see my father's expression. He showed up. He appeared to be in pain, so I felt awful for him. My dad was told to follow the ambulance, and I hoped he was okay when I heard that. I also questioned why I was being transported to a different location before closing my eyes once more. When I awoke, I was being poked and pushed. I was in a bed in a different hospital this time. When I opened my eyes, my head was slanted on its side as if I were dozing. I caught my mother staring at me. I asked her in a whisper, "Am I going to die, Mommy?" She told me I would be fine after taking a look at me. The needle was inserted into my spine once more while I was in that coital position, but this time there was no pain. I saw the doctor examine the fluid tube he had just taken out of me. It had tiny specks in it that turned out to be blood and was a brownish color. I once again blacked out after he hurriedly said something. When I was placed in a room with a sizable bathtub and brought there while still unconscious, ice was then placed all around me. As soon as it touched me, the ice would instantly transform into warm water. I was stricken with a fever of 114 degrees. I'm not sure how long I was there, but the next thing I remember is the doctor telling my parents that I needed to be quarantined. My eyes wouldn't open, and I was once more unable to move. Despite being able to hear everything going on around me, I felt as though I were listening to a radio program. Then I fell into that perpetually peaceful sleep. My being in a coma was the next thing I heard. I could hear people talking, but I couldn't understand very much of what they were saying because it sounded to me like they were all speaking a foreign language. I found that to be strange. My mother could be heard discussing baseball with me. She compared what was taking place to me to a baseball game. I had to hit the ball out of the park to win the game because I was one of the players. I tried to pay attention to everything she was saying, but I found it difficult to do so for very long. Later, I could still hear my parents speaking with the doctor. Of all things, I had a baseball-sized blood clot forming behind my heart that needed to be removed, or I would pass away. He informed my parents that, although there was a very slim chance that I would or could survive the procedure, there was no other choice. To reach the clot behind my heart, they planned to pass a tube through my leg. Although I was still in a coma and couldn't move or speak, I could occasionally hear what was happening around me. I didn't hear the rest of what he was going to have to do before I passed out once more. I was beginning to awaken when they put the tube in me and the procedure was still ongoing, so I was aware of it. I was already comatose, so they were unable to administer any type of anesthesia to me. After hearing someone yell, "He's flatlying," I disappeared into the shadows. I didn't spend a lot of time in the dark. Although I was moving, I was aware that the object was no longer on the table. Thousands of different colors were in front of me. I appeared to be viewing the aurora borealis. Then, as if recognizing me, one of the multicolored rainbows charged straight toward me and lifted me. In a way similar to riding an escalator while sitting down, I could feel myself moving along the rainbow as if it were a solid surface. As I traveled along the rainbow, I was observing the colors when one of them suddenly hit me like a wave. As I kept being hit by the colors that were pure emotion, I was suddenly overcome with an emotion that was the only emotion I could feel. It was quickly replaced by another. I experienced unadulterated rage, unwavering love, envy, fear, joy, and other emotions I can't put my finger on. That emotion completely consumed me until another one rushed into and through me. I was assimilating into the rainbow. Although I was aware that I was dead, I had no idea what to do. I noticed additional rainbows as I peered beyond the one I was currently on. I questioned whether anyone else was using the other ones. I could see that the colors and the emotions they were inflicting on me were beginning to fade. I finally came to a stop that resembled a dock. I got to my feet and left the rainbow. I appeared to be in a cloudy, gray area. It almost appeared to be a cave. When I saw a figure coming toward me, I felt better. The person was my late uncle. He told me I wasn't in the right place as I stood in front of him. When I turned to look, I noticed a very bright light off to my right and in the distance. "Yes, it is heaven," he said as he nodded in my direction. He extended his huge hand to me as I turned to face him. When I took it, I could visualize things and my mind was overflowing with information. I knew everything there was to know or will be known in that split second. When he touched my hand, with the exception of one thing, I had a choice, he said as he gave me a look. He told me that he would lead me to heaven and the light, or I could turn around and go back because it wasn't my time. I was removing the covers from my head in an instant. When I returned to the hospital, I was surrounded by other deceased patients who were waiting to be taken to the morgue. When I opened my eyes, I was fine. I witnessed a nurse leaving the room after hearing a spine-tingling scream. A few minutes later, a number of people returned to the space. I discovered that I had been in that state for 32 minutes after being pronounced dead. Additionally, I learned that 14 students at my school had spinal meningitis. Only I managed to survive the illness. Number 14 was me. The disease was tested for in my body, but it was not discovered. For tests to determine what had happened and why I was still alive, I was asked to remain in the hospital for an additional 2 weeks. They tested my range of motion, took blood samples, took x-rays, and asked me a lot of questions throughout the procedure. I wasn't questioned about my time in the afterlife. I kept it a secret because nobody seemed to care other than why I was still alive. On the day I was to depart, the doctor informed me that I would go down in medical history. I felt good when I left. I sensed that all of the information my uncle had imparted to me was slowly vanishing when I got back. I was aware that it would only be a matter of time before all the fresh information was lost. Shortly after leaving the hospital, I began to notice strange occurrences. If I was too close to a light, it would burn out. If I went near a TV or radio, it would change stations. Not just house lights, but additionally street lights. When I got close to other electrical devices, they would freak out. Then it too vanished. I received a gift from the encounter. After taking a second IQ test, I later discovered that I had improved by a few points. I received a score of 175 on my IQ test. However, it didn't seem like I had picked up the information. Rather, for lack of a better explanation, it seemed like I had been programmed with it. I didn't know how to utilize it to the fullest extent because I lacked the experience that comes with having something your entire life. I believe that something is crucially missing. Since I refused to follow my uncle's advice, I've repeatedly been told that I am a miracle and that I have a purpose or something that I am going to do. There is no doubt in my mind that a miracle took place, but I have yet to learn why. If you're looking for more life-changing content that will leave you inspired and reflective, then you simply cannot miss the next video in our series.